Hi, this is Dave, and before we get to the show, I wanted to ask you a favor. One of our goals this year is to grow the show so that What Does Star Wars Mean to You reaches more listeners. And that's where we're asking you for help. And it's really easy. Wherever you listen to us, please hit that subscribe button. If you're liking the show, give us a 5-star rating and review on the platform you listen to us. We make a lot of fun of the algorithm and the smash that button thing, but it really does help us get noticed by new fans. And if you want to join in on the conversation, find us on social at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2 in the letter U. Now, let's chat some Star Wars.
Hello there, this is Elora, and I'm a prequel trilogy kid.
And this is Dave, and I'm an original trilogy kid. And you're listening to What Does Star Wars Mean to You? The show where we talk to all kinds of fans of the franchise, from industry insiders to indie artists, from obsessive mythologists to mega collectors, all for one goal, to take the hate out of the debate by focusing on one fan at a time to find out what does Star Wars mean to you. Plus, it's just fun to chat Star Wars.
Yeah, and welcome to our episode between episodes. This is where Dave and I deep dive on our favorite aspects of our guest interviews and just kind of generally talk about anything that's interesting to us each week. It's our time to catch up, talk Star Wars at each other, and then edit it down to a really, digestible piece of content for you and your ears.
Yes. And last week we spoke to Chris Kempshall, who is the author of the book, The Rise and Fall of the Galactic Empire. And one thing I keep forgetting is it's Dr. Chris Kempshall. And
yes,
he's a historian and he's earned his doctorate, so I should call him a doctor.
Should we kick off with the Holocron recap?
Let's do it.
So this is our favorite moments from the interview. Dave, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. I was torn because sometimes I'm like, should we be talking specifically favorite Star Wars moments or just favorite moments from the interview? But this moment I really, really loved is when he was talking about what does Star Wars means to him. Literally, our last question always is, what does Star Wars mean to you? He kind of got choked up because he was so authentically honored that he got a book of his into the Star Wars world. He is part of that world. He made, I don't know if it's a transition or what you would call it, but the fact that he had a book out there that he knew fans would love and want to read. And it wasn't even that he knew that they would love them. That feels too presumptuous. He was touched how fans were loving it. Mm-hmm. And I love those kind of quiet emotional moments where it just feels real and is an expression of true emotion. And so that was my favorite moment.
No, I agree. It was one of mine too. I love it when you get to see people's dreams come true.
Yes. Yes.
And that was one of those moments. You couldn't help but root for him.
Yes, absolutely. And look, there was a lot of great Star Wars stuff that I loved too. And we'll
Oh, sure.
I almost said, and we'll get into that.
I wondered why you stopped. I was like,
I see you.
It's only because you were just talking about it. That's happens to me all the time. I'll say a pet peeve or I'll get tripped up or say something incorrectly. And then you keep doing it because it's all you're thinking about.
Yes.
One of my favorite moments, I really enjoyed his historian perspective on Star Wars a lot. I thought that was a really interesting perspective.
Very unique perspective.
So unique. We hadn't chatted with anybody that kind of, with that background about Star Wars. But one of the things I enjoyed was he was talking about war in Star Wars and how essential that is to what Star Wars is. Wars.
I was just thinking that it was kind of interesting because it's not a word I think about a lot in Star Wars because to me, I think wars has turned into high adventure when it comes to talking about Star Wars.
Yeah.
Clone Wars does take the step towards going, this is war. Rogue One gets into this is war.
Yeah.
And Andor too. And so when he highlighted that, I was like, oh my God, you're right. It's a crucial element, the idea of war.
And it's right there in the title. And
It is right
how
there in the
easily
title.
you forget. Yeah. And I loved his perspective on it. That it had Star Wars as the opera has such a good degree of good and evil. And it's a really relatable sense of good and evil. It's something that we can understand and see ourselves in. It blends quite close to each other. Sometimes you're not 100% sure who's falling on what side, even if,
Yes.
overwhelmingly somebody might be more of a protagonist. Doesn't mean we don't have evil days. Stuff like that I was like, oh my God, you're so, that's why this has been, I think, so impactful for so many people for so long, as it's so relatable. I also just loved his point on whatever it is that we're trying to tear down, whatever it is that we're trying to replace it with. There's this idea that tomorrow can be better, things can be better.
Yes.
And that's absolutely infused in Star Wars for him, and how much that has to do with hope. And I loved that. I also enjoyed him revealing how he approached his book. And this is more just a comedic tidbit. Because he made such a good point that, we knew nothing about the Galactic Empire. Most of what we knew was actually assumption-based, and that he kind of had to create their history to give them some form of, validity.
We don't see the gears of the Empire working. Until Andor, we don't see, the lower level kind of crap. And that's how I thought he kind of meant that there's this veil of how do you separate the propaganda from the reality?
Yeah. I actually wrote it down. One of my favorite things he said was,
we don't know anything about the Galactic Empire.
Mm-hmm.
So much of what we know about the Galactic Empire is actually based on assumption of what the Empire probably does, and what the Empire probably is.
Yeah.
But it's never actually been depicted on screen. We assume that the Empire is probably, fairly indoctrinated to kids in schools, but we've never seen it. We assume that the upper echelons of the Empire are rife with financial corruption and tax evasion, but we've never seen it. We've seen bits of the edges of it. So the challenge was actually trying to figure out, and for a huge amount of this, the heavy lifting that Story Group at Lucasfilm had to do to help me trying to piece some of this together was ridiculous. They were absolutely heroic. Was trying to find out, okay, what do we know about the Empire in the sense of what has appeared that we can take as an example or a starting point. But then where it starts moving into the fun part was, okay, well, I guess we'll just build this from the ground up then. This will be the first time that any of this has been established.
What he was saying was that he kind of had to create what we all assumed based off of, the storylines we know and love. So that was, and honestly, what an awesome challenge for a doctor of history and massive fan of Star Wars to take on.
Yeah, exactly. And thank God he's a doctorate in history, as opposed to me, who knows nothing about anything, trying to go okay, and then the Emperor was I can't even think of an example. That's how little I know of history.
It was a joy to talk to him. He kept referencing history of our own world. And I was like, oh my God, the way his mind works. Yes. Once again, I left feeling smarter, and I loved that.
Yes. Yeah. It was like a TED Talk, but two idiots were on stage with the presenter. That's a TED Talk I want to start doing. It's TED Talk with two idiots.
Two people who have no business interviewing this awesome person.
Exactly.
Oh, man.
So another thing that he brought up that I really enjoyed, and I think we should dive into the data pad now and cover it, which is the Star Wars Galaxies game.
Yeah. Something incredibly fun came up during our conversation with Chris. I knew nothing of this. Had you heard of Star Wars Galaxies? Particular server, though?
Not this particular server. I knew in general about the game.
Had you ever played it?
No, I haven't. I'm not a big massive multiplayer online role-playing game, a more... That's it.
I think is how you
Yes. Yeah. MMORPG. World of Warcraft is one of these.
Should we let Chris, in his own words, describe
maybe
what Star Wars Galaxies meant to him? I think that might be a good idea.
So I'm crushingly aware of the extent to which I'm a cliche. Because anybody, if they talk about Star Wars with me in general, or, if they're held captive for like a dinner party or in one of these things, like there's a ticking clock to the moment when I start talking about Star Wars Galaxies, the old online game from the early 2000s, which was everything I have ever wanted from a computer game experience. It is my favorite piece of Star Wars. It's my favorite computer game of all time. I wouldn't have written the book. We wouldn't be sat here talking to each other now if it wasn't for Star Wars Galaxies. It's probably one of the most important things that's ever happened to me. So it's going to be that.
So a little history for those unfamiliar like myself. I went and I did some deep dive. It was a MMORPG that was developed by Sony Online Entertainment and LucasArts, and it launched in June of 2003. Set in the Star Wars universe, it allowed players to create their own characters and explore the galaxy, which I don't know how I missed this. This seemed kind of up my alley. I really loved computer games as a kid. I guess I just wasn't chronically online then. I don't know.
Like, I was an adult when it came out, and I couldn't. Well, here's the thing with me. I start playing a game like this, and I kind of fall off, and then if I go back in, everyone just kills me.
Oh, no! Like, you forget how to play?
Yeah, I forget how to play. My character doesn't really grow. I'm much better if it's like you're on a track. Like Jedi Survivor. That's my speed.
That's good to know. I've never played an open world game. It was known for its kind of like sandbox style gameplay is how they call it, which basically like allows players to choose from various professions or engage in space and ground combat. And it was like very like role playing driven. And that's really, I think that's probably why it was so special, was like it was completely up to the people who within it playing it to make it what it was.
And the more I kind of find out about it, the more I'm like, oh, I think I missed out on this. And should I be trying an MMORPG?
I know. I wish I could go back to June of 2000. I've been trying to come up with like a sound for it, like morgue. But that sounds morgue, which is completely not the vibe. Players could pick from a variety of like careers. So you could be like a smuggler or a medic. You could be a bounty hunter or a Jedi, an armor smith, a weaponsmith. All those were like very highly valuable. Again, this is coming from somebody who's never played. I just did a lot of research on the game. And then players could like go through a path to like unlock a hidden system of like becoming a Jedi, I think is what the intention of that was. Yeah, if I've got that wrong, like someone listening to this is like, no, that's not at all it. Like, hit us up on social. It's kind of like the whole world could sign on and play action figures together.
I think that's a really good
Which is
way.
So cool.
If you have one action figure. Yeah.
I'll have one.
This is my
There were a lot of expansions that came within the game. Like, they did like different expansion packs throughout its existence. There was something about starships. You could like visit Kashyyyk, which is the Wookiee world. And then there was one with like Mustafar. But it's the combat expansion that I think we really wanted to dive into, because that is what Chris brought up.
Yes.
Do you want to take it away?
Yes. So Chris told us this story about how a lot of the game, it was up to the players to provide the content, and that they, quote, provided a ton of content. A very specific battle took place. And let's just have him tell this, because I loved this battle. I mean, I got obsessed with it. So here's Chris talking about is it the occupation of Tatooine?
I
Is that
think
what it's
it was.
called?
Yes. Yeah.
Because I keep wanting to call it the Battle of Tatooine. Here you go. Chris, take it away.
So in like 2004, 2005 time, all of the Imperial guilds on the server, we're talking about hundreds of players, had for months planned the invasion of Tatooine to destroy all of the rebel bases on there, because it was a rebel occupied and held planet. And we all gathered on Naboo, and we all flew up into space, and in TIE fighters and in ships. We traveled from Naboo to Tatooine, and then we stormed the planet and we marched across the planet. And It definitely happened. I was there. I saw it happen. Like the biggest collection of Imperial players and the history of the server.
Wow.
And it was amazing, but it didn't happen. But it did happen because I was there.
Yes.
So funny to me. Like,
it's amazing to me. I mean, it's just this idea that there was this epic battle on one server, hundreds of people. And there was someone, and I forget who it was, but there was someone he worked with at the Star Wars Lucasfilm Story Group who was on that server in that battle with him.
It was like connecting people later in life.
Yes. And Kelly Knox may not have been on that server, but she worked with Star Wars Galaxies back then. And I really want to find out if she knows about the occupation of Tatooine, because I think it would be really fascinating.
I loved this so much. I loved that there's this... I also loved his commentary on it, that, like, you know, there was a battle that raged for 36 hours until they shut the server down. And the way I envision it is, you know, people actually treating it like battle. Like, for 36 hours, that was the, you know, Mom, don't turn off the internet. Don't you know what's going on? Or like, I can't go to bed tonight. Like, there's too many important things out. Like, that kind of like excitement and like intensity over it. But that there's no record. It doesn't exist except for the people who were there.
I want to do a documentary on this battle. Like, I think it would be interesting.
I want to do that. Can we?
Interview.
Oh my God, can we do a podcast documentary? Can we try? If you were on this server in 2004 or 5.
If you took part in the occupation of Tatooine.
Hit us up at What Does Star Wars Mean to You? Because I actually would love to put together a space opera podcast about the perspectives of this battle. Because history is what we remember, is what Chris said. And I thought my takeaway was, you know, even if it's a galaxy far, far away, I loved that. Yeah. So now I want to go play Star Wars Galaxies, even though I know it'll probably never have the same nostalgic punch that that he speaks of.
Well, it would be great if they came out with like Star Wars Galaxies 2 that was all updated or...
No, I wish I hadn't missed this. It closed in, like, it operated until 2011, and then I think that was to replace it with another game. But as far as my research shows, there is no Star Wars Galaxies online game anymore, which is kind of sad.
It is. I'm trying to think of other games because there's like Battlefront. Star Wars Arena. Like, there's nothing like Galaxies right now.
Nothing like that. No battles at Tatooine will take place right now, but maybe sometime in the future. I don't know. What was your biggest takeaway from this this epic historical retelling?
I think you know what hits me about this is how a group of people came together, whether they were on the rebellion or the Empire side, came together to really to do a coordinated effort against Tatooine. I just think that's so amazing because it's not like there was like 20 guys who were like, hey, you want to, like, we're all friends, let's attack Tatooine. No, this had to be organized and arranged, and somehow, like, how do you organize something like this online? And isn't that amazing that it kind of
makes you think about, like, today, you know, people are so much more online. There's so many different social channels. Like, I think that what companies, especially like any companies doing marketing, is trying to figure out the magic formula is like what makes that thing go viral, right? Like what makes everyone participate, what gets people on the bandwagon to join in them on whatever that conversation or that soundbite is. This is kind of an early version of that. Like a couple people started something and it caught on like wildfire. And if we figured out how that happens, Dave, I think we would be set for life, because I think that there's a lot of money
oh my God,
going into researching that exact phenomenon and how it can make people money.
Yes.
But I think it's just, when you sometimes just catch lightning in a bottle.
That research is called TikTok.
Exactly. Someone really mastered that algorithm. But that sometimes you just catch lightning in a bottle and humans come together.
And I think that's I think that's a perfect lightning in a bottle is a really great way to phrase it because it's such a unique experience. And what it is also, I find fascinating, and this is how I believe the possibility that people don't know Jedi really exists within the Star Wars world, is because there's this massive thing that was huge to Chris at the time. It was this, for him, it was his entire world. And for me, it's been 20 years before I even found out one iota about it. And that is, I think that represents the Star Wars universe in the sense that there is so much going on that, yes, we're focusing on the Jedi, but just because you're focusing on the Jedi doesn't mean the rest of the universe is. And I find that kind of interesting.
Love that. That's, no, it was great because it also, like, it's indicative of what we're seeing in the Star Wars universe right now and the content we're getting in the books and in the shows. And they're starting to kind of go to the outer rim, for lack of a better analogy, really expanding our understanding of that world, that universe and the aliens that live in it.
Yeah, and I think for that reason, I feel like Skeleton Crew works. I've heard people complain that's like, wait, there's this hidden planet. Why haven't we heard of this before? It's like, because we weren't looking in that direction. Because it was hidden. Yeah. You know, a lot of stuff goes on in the galaxy.
A lot of stuff goes on in the galaxy. A lot of stuff goes on in our galaxy, y'all. Turn on a Brian Cox podcast once in a while.
But not only does a lot go on in our galaxy, but also a lot goes on in our Star Wars week. So this week, how did we Star Wars? Or how did we Star Wars this week? I don't know how to phrase it.
We both Star Wars the same way this week.
We did.
What did we do, Dave?
I don't know why I find that so funny, the way you phrased that. Yes, we went to Emerald City Comic-Con, which is a Seattle Comic-Con.
Yeah.
It was so much fun. I think it's a pretty big Comic-Con.
It's pretty big. I mean, it happens at the Seattle Convention Center. And if anyone here is listening from kind of being more local, you know, the Seattle Convention Center recently expanded. So yeah, it's a pretty big conference. I will say, last year you and I went, I think, on like a Thursday or a Friday.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think my introverted soul did better with that crowd than on a Saturday. Which is what we did
Saturday Comic-Con crowd is a large crowd, lots of people, lots of jostling.
I came home with a massive bruise on my calf. Like
I punched you once.
I don't know if it was on the train to and from my car. I don't know if it was in the crowds at the convention center, but like, I don't remember it happening, but like it's a nasty bruise. It's like the size of a peach and it's black and purple, and it's still healing a week later.
Wow. The only thing that would make that better, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a lot of things that would make it better, but if it was like, if it looked like the face of Boba Fett,
there you go.
That would be really cool.
But we also had a really good time, too.
Yes. We got there early to wait in line to see John Boyega. And I wasn't, honestly, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting his style of jubilance and excitement.
Oh, yeah. I think I leaned over to you at one point and I was like, I think I've just fallen in love. Literally, he was so excited to be there. He was funny. He was so well spoken, and none of this is surprising. I mean, I've seen interviews with him before, but I think there was something about being in the room.
Yes.
Like his energy exchange with a crowd. I don't know. It was something else. It was really a good time.
It really was. And I found him very open with his stories, and we did capture some of his stories, and we have a little tape. Should we just play the tape?
Yeah, let's roll the tape.
What? I'm 1980s man. Let's play the tape. Roll the tape.
Put our hands together for the man, the myth, the legend himself. Please welcome to the stage today, John Boyega! What is your favorite Star Wars memory? Why is it being cast?
Oh, there's so many Star Wars memories. but this is one I've told before, but it's just my favorite, so I'll tell it again. Like it was taking Harrison Ford to my local area and feeding him Nigerian food. And it was, what I liked about it is that when he asked me that, you know, I've just been eating chicken breast and veg, and I just want to eat something that's from your culture, because I'd spoken to him about, you know, my dual citizenship, where I'm from and stuff. His personal security was kind of like, where you taking Indiana Jones? I said, I'm taking Indiana Jones to the hood. I'm taking him to the trenches. Because he has fans there too. And he did. As soon as a whole bunch of Nigerians were outside of the restaurant, and as soon as they saw Harrison, they was like, oh my God, are you Harrison Ford? And he said, I used to be. And I was just in the background like this. So cool, so cool.
There was a question, I'm sorry, I don't know who asked it because it's not on the screen anymore, but I think it's a great one to go out on. What is your favorite Star Wars movie? And if you want to mulligan it, I can say don't pick one you fit in because that's too obvious.
No. My favorite though.
Yeah.
How can it be a favorite when Star Wars is life? It's like different, you know, scenarios and stuff. I don't know. Return of the Jedi. And guess what's after that though? Guess what's after that? Rogue One. I think that's it. And I can't lie to you. Rogue One came out during our franchise. I said I should have been born earlier. I like that movie. I think yeah.
Those were definitely my two favorite moments from the...
Yes.
That and the favorite lightsaber color, I think, was also...
I that was pulled out as a select, but I didn't think it played well.
You had to be there.
Yeah.
For those who weren't there or haven't seen it online, basically he was asked by an audience member what his color lightsaber would be as a Jedi. And he said red, to everyone's surprise. But then all of the, like, you know, Sith fans in the audience raised their red lightsabers, and it was pretty fabulous. Yeah.
At first, only 2 people raised their lightsabers.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, we're surprised there's only 2 red lightsabers here. And all of a sudden, it was like, boom, zoom, 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 everywhere. Until there was like 6 or 7 lightsabers, and then 1 purple one.
Yes, and then there was the conversation around what Samuel L. Jackson did for the fandom with his purple lightsaber. Yeah, It was a pretty good time.
We also, we saw a lot of the artists, which is always fun. We
ran into John Jackson Miller again.
We ran into John Jackson Miller at his table, and we went over to Kelly Knox's table, and I got, what was it, the Dad Jokes book from her, Star Wars Dad Jokes, which is a very fun book, and Hyperspace Heroes uses it every week to end on a Star Wars Dad joke, which I find hysterical.
I love that little bit, yeah. And she was lovely. She was so nice. We did one very cool panel this year, too.
Yes, we did. It was the Saga Museum, and it is 4 uber collectors. I mean, they're big names in the collecting world.
It's Steve Sansweet of the Rancho Obi-Wan, Duncan Jenkins, although he wasn't there, but he has the Smithsonian. Say that 10 times fast.
I can't even say it one time slowly.
I could barely say it once. I choked that out. Gus Lopez of Baba Cabana. And then Lisa Stevens and Vic Wirtz, who have the Imperial Archives. And what they're trying to do is put together the fan-driven museum of memorabilia. Yes,
which sounds fantastic. It's bringing all their collections all together for one space so that fans can go and peruse it.
Yeah.
As I was about to say, as if it were a museum, but it is a museum. I mean,
it is. And they wanted to do some cool education stuff.
Yes.
What blew my mind was that the 4 or 5 of them combined have over 1.5 million objects.
Yes. I mean, that's...
Talk about a collection.
Yeah, because that's it's 250,000 each or 200,000 each.
Least.
That's a lot of, I may have 300 pieces.
I probably only have like 24.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Very cool. I think we'll try to get them on the show.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're working on getting one or some of them on the show. And
Talk about what they're doing because it's pretty rad. Yeah.
It is pretty rad. I can't believe I just went, it is pretty rad. The other thing we did was the Star Wars experience, which is a kind of like a interactive exhibit that Alpha Base puts on, and Alpha Base is part of, it's the local, what do you call that? The local arm? The local tangent?
Club?
Yeah, it's the local version for Rebel Legion, which is an international Star Wars costuming organization. Yeah. And they raise money for causes, and they have this thing called the Star Wars exhibit where this year you were traveling to different planets. You got a passport, a galactic passport when you entered, and you went through different what do you call that? Different planet and destinations. They had Nevarro, Mandalore, Bespin, Tatooine, Coruscant, and Endor. And you got a little stamp, and then they had like donated baskets and stuff that you could do a silent auction, which was raising money for local charities, which it was really wonderful. And everyone's in costume there, and the costumes are fantastic. The
commitment to character.
Yes. Yeah. The woman who was letting you in, she was dressed like an Imperial Moff, like a Grand Moff Tarkin, I think. A Grand Moff Tarkin. I always call them Grand Moff Tarkins, even though it's a Grand Moff. Tarkin happens to be the one dude, like Grand Moff Thrawn. Anyway, she had this whole spiel about, reporting people is good for the Empire. If you see something, say something. That was really fun. Then they had a recreation of the Emperor's throne, which
I forgot about that.
We got pictures of, and it was so funny because I was like, "Hey, E, go sit on the throne, and we'll get a picture." and they have like a Darth Vader and a TIE fighter pilot on either side, and someone was like, "Hey, do you want to get in the picture too?" And you were like scooching over on the throne to make room for me.
It was huge.
It was huge. But I was like, oh, what if I sit down and break it? Like, what if the arms aren't as strong? What if the I saw myself, I just saw a disaster happening. And
I also had, that's so funny. I also had a moment where I said a silly fandom thing or had a silly thought because you were like, oh, go get a photo in the throne. And I said something to the Darth Vader and the officer. I said, I think am I getting arrested? Which was ridiculous because I was about to sit on the throne. But anyway. Yes. So I sat down feeling like a very embarrassed Star Wars fan.
Could you imagine in the Star Wars universe that the Emperor would do that for 30,000 credits just to make some extra money for some reason? And Darth Vader has to do these meet and greets. He's like,
yes.
Who are you?
So funny. That's such a good take. Another, they had fun set dressing, I guess is what you would call it, all around, kind of trying to represent the different planets.
Yes.
And the poster at the very beginning when you pick up your galactic passport kind of had me cackling. I loved the dark humor. It was a big poster that said, visit beautiful Alderaan, and then there's a big sticker over it that said flights canceled. That went up on my Instagram.
But how did you Star Wars this week? Let us know. Hit us up on socials at Star Wars Mean to You. That's at Star Wars Mean, the number 2 and the letter U. So that's what Star Wars means to us this week. Next week, we're going to talk to Mark Thompson, who has narrated a ton of Star Wars audiobooks. Far too many to list out, but they cover every era of Star Wars, whether it's Legends or the new canon. And his talent for capturing voices of the characters, it really makes it more than just narration, but a performance. So really excited to share that with you next week. Oh, and I highly recommend, if you haven't listened to Mark Thompson narrate a Star Wars audiobook, get one from the library, buy it, I don't know. But take a listen because very worthwhile. If you're liking the show, please Give us a 5-star rating. Give us a good review. It really helps us get the word out there, exposes us to other people. And if you have a friend who likes Star Wars, share it with them. Spread the word. We'd really love to grow the show. And you can join us on socials at Star Wars Mean to You. That's Star Wars Mean, the number 2, and the letter U.
I would invite anyone to hit us up on social too if there's something we're not covering but you think we should. What do you want to hear us talk about?
Absolutely. Yeah. Who are the people we're not interviewing that we should interview?
Yes. Hit us up.
May the Force be with you.
And with you.